Continuous and contour line drawings are some of the most fun and eye-opening and relaxing drawings you can do. We're going to bring it to the next step for this. Remember, a continuous line is a line that never stops while you're working with it, and then a contour line just focuses on that outside edge of a shape. Here, I'm just painting a piece of acrylic, plastic. You could really figure out a lot of different things to do for this. You could do it in a plastic bag. You could even squeeze paint into a plastic bag to do this at home if you wanted to do something a little less messy. But here I just paint just different variances of blacks and blacks and whites, not really focusing on painting a subject, not really focusing on blending all the colors together. That is an option if that's something you would like to do. I like a little bit more of an abstracted feel. I think it really opens up the eyes and creates a variety of textures and values. Remember, value is the difference between light and dark. So talking about the continuous line, though, I use the edge or the end of my paintbrush just like I would a pencil. And I'm not working from a reference image. I'm working from my imagination, just focusing on the parts of a face. So the eyes, the nose, forehead, chin, lips, mouth, all those main parts of the face. Again, I'm not working from an image. I'm working from my imagination. If you wanted to work from a reference image, it's a great idea. I wanted something a little bit more imaginative, so I just kind of played with different shapes and forms. Remember, a continuous line and a contour line drawing combined, they're not going to be perfect. They're meant to be interesting in ways of mistakes. So don't be afraid to experiment and get creative with it. Here, I am using a rolled up piece of paper, or you could use a paper towel and just wrap it around your finger. And I'm just kind of wiping away some more of that paint, just giving it the lines a variance between thick and thin, which also adds to a creative aspect of it as well. And I just kind of cut out some of those further shapes to emphasize the face shape and different parts of it. You could even go in and do like a stippling texture with a Q-tip and just add to the texture. The next part here that we would do in class is we are going to take a piece of paper, any size piece of paper. I think ours will probably be square because I like squares. But besides the point, just plain piece of paper. You're going to need a cup of water and a sponge. I recommend a clean sponge. Mine's not very clean because art teacher problems. Dip it in water. Don't make it too wet. Squeeze it out. Get it nice and damp but not soaking wet. And then just brush that sponge all through the paper. You're going to want to do the front and the back. You're going to make sure you focus on the edges. If you focus on one side, it's just going to curl. So you need to do both sides of the paper, front and back, and make sure you really focus on those edges. The next part's super important as well. You're going to want to do this while the paper is still wet. And yes, I know I have paint on the back of mine. That's from my messy mat that I was working with. And you're just going to put the wet piece of paper and brush the wet sponge over that plexiglass that had the paint on it with the paint side up. This is what we call a mono print. This is a one-time print. And you get a really interesting print off. Now you can do this a couple different times, and I like to do it until the paint or the ink that we're using it, whatever at the time. I like to make sure I use all the paint because nobody likes to be wasteful. So I just take a wet paintbrush and kind of blend out those colors again, and I just do the same exact thing. I create another type of design, focusing on the use of a continuous line. This time I'm not focusing on a face. You guys will focus on a face, but just to show you guys some variety, using the end of your paintbrush. Paintbrushes can be your tools in more than one way. It's awesome. And then again, using that piece of paper towel that's rolled up. And you could also use a Q-tip. There's so many different things you could do this with. It's just really, really fun to experiment with. Remember, this is not about perfection. This is about experience. Art is all about the experience. We're a project-based class, but we're not a product-based class. We're here to experience art and learn from it, not to make something as perfect as possible, because that's no fun. Nobody ever gets any benefit out of that. We're here to experiment with art. We're here to experience it and learn from it. The best way to learn is to do. And here you can, like I said, you can just see that I'm adding a variety of different textures, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to push that acrylic plate out of my way for a minute, get another piece of paper, wet it down front and back with a damp sponge, not a soaking wet sponge. You don't want your paper to be soaking wet. You want it to be damp. If it's soaking wet, you risk tearing it, which we don't want to see happen, especially if we come up with a really cool print. So again, just brushing that sponge over the top and then taking that plexiglass and doing the same thing. It's also really important that you want the paint on not plexiglass, the acrylic, to be slightly wet still as well, but adding the wet paper will help activate the paint, which is water-based too. And now you can see the paint's kind of running out on it, but we still get this really cool texture and effect from the paper. And these are the finished products. I think they turned out pretty cool. Kind of makes me want to print something on top of it, maybe in a different color, just to see how they turn out. Again, all you need for this is a little bit of paint, an open mind, and a continuous contour line, and a wide open imagination.